Hey guys, it's Tripl-L coming and talk about My Hero Academia chapter 361. I'm doing this right before doing the live stream. It was a really tough day. It's a heat wave also. So we're going to step into the video. I don't think that I have any big general notes. It's a really short chapter. It's not too much, like less than 14 pages. That said, there are a lot of critical details that pop up in the chapter that make things a little bit more interesting to talk about. And if I'm a little bit angry or annoyed or I sound like that, it's the heat, and I apologize. But you know what? I will use it to really come out strong and celebrate Hero Academia. Because as you recall, we are My Simp Academia. We are going to simp all the way for Hero Academia as much as we can till the end. All right, chapter 361. Yeah, no general notes. Let's just get into the chapter so I can get through this and hopefully get to the live stream on time. Oh, and yeah, just to make sure, I'm going to be aggressive on, like, there's one point in particular I'm going to be very aggressive on, but it's mostly devil's advocate. Like, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter because Nejire doesn't matter all that much. But yeah, just keep that in mind. Anyway, we begin chapter 361. We start off with Tenko. So I do think this is fundamentally one of the most interesting things in the chapter. Everything that happens with Shigaraki and Tenko. I think that the majority of people that react on Twitter probably aren't going to appreciate the little nuances that are occurring here, because like I saw people reacting like, oh my god, Shigaraki thinks he has friends still. It's like, it's not Shigaraki saying it, it's Tenko. We're in a situation now where we can't just look at the resulting personality, that being the exterior personality, like whatever's going on the outside. Every component of Shigaraki is a subconscious drive, essentially. It's a metaphor for a subconscious drive. We now have four entities in the place of one. Tenko, All for One, Shigaraki, and whoever is speaking or using Shigaraki's mouth, right? So that's like the big thing. Anyone that says that Shigaraki thinks he has friends, that's a fundamental lie. They're like, whoever is saying that is just factually incorrect. Unless you specifically say that exterior Shigaraki thinks he has friends, because then it's like, okay, now we're getting into the reads here. But no, it's Tenko. I do like the way that the author kind of played with it. Although, like, the next big thing to wonder here is, like, when you see the anger that pops up in page 2, is that anger coming from Tenko, or is that anger getting mixed in with the general aggression that Shigaraki All for One have, and it's coming out like as a mix? Now, given that these are personalities and these are subconscious drives, pretty much, what you should be seeing here is that it must be some level of a mix. Something must be mixing in here, because like the situation seems relatively fluid. Anyway, for page 1, one thing that I will say, it's unfortunate that when it comes to the flashback, he specifically references the flashback that we saw, which isn't bad on Horikoshi, but this is one of those unfortunate things where, like, oh yeah, you're thinking back to that one time you told your mom about your friends instead of just thinking about your friends and you hanging out with them, right? You know, it's that little thing. But you kind of understand why it's happening, because like Horikoshi has to look. It's better for him if he references things that readers saw, because that's a little bit easier to understand. Even though it kind of there's something that gets impacted there. I don't know what to call it though. Immersion, not immersion. Maybe just like the internal world of Hero Academia. But again, like, as this is happening because this is a product and because this is just a better tool to do here. How could you have improved that flashback panel? Well, first you have to be honest and just say it's not an important flashback panel. It's just a reminder to say that, yeah, Tenko once had friends. The way you would improve on it would be to do what like maybe Oda does and just like add in a whole new scene of like the faces or like maybe the silhouette of Shigaraki's friends. That would be the way to go about it. But again, not really important. And given that this week had 14 pages, Horikoshi's probably like super stressed. He's probably already hitting his limit in terms of what he can produce per week, given the small page count. Okay, we go into page 2. I think the anger face is really, really good. Still, we see that Shigaraki is accumulating damage. The evolution is not repairing his face, even though he really needs it. His eye looks like it's still damaged, so God knows what it means to evolve and still not have like a functioning eye. Now, what I like here is the speech pattern. I do wonder what the speech pattern looks like in Japanese, because going into because like Mikun and Tomo said, you're really nice 10. He's even referring to himself as Tenko in that particular situation. And you have Mon likes to go on walks with me. Did you know that? So that is 100% like a personality that hasn't grown up, and it's within there. Now, I've neglected to talk about this, but this is actually a really big problem when it comes to Shigaraki's autonomy. And not even talking about what All for One's done to him. Now that Tenko is really, really clearly a distinct personality, so distinct that he is interfering with All for One, now that this has been fully established, do you realize what that says about Shigaraki when he has white hair? It means that Shigaraki, Tomura Shigaraki and Tenko like deviated from a very early time. There isn't a natural progression from Tenko to Shigaraki. It's flat out, these people split. And you know what? At this point, like the author's probably gonna do it. He's probably gonna have a line about how All for One giving Shigaraki his name, Tomura Shigaraki, is what made Shigaraki's mind more willing to be Shigaraki, as in Shigaraki All for One. There's probably going to be like a little psychological kind of plays in there. But no, this is a fundamental big issue because now what this does is that Tenko is literally blameless. Now you can actually put everything on the split personality that pretty much grew out of the trauma way back when All for One met Shigaraki. You can't just... And just to give you the differentiation here, if Tenko had naturally progressed into Shigaraki and had naturally grown into Shigaraki, you would not have this deviation there unless you wanted to say that Tenko was a subconscious drive from the very beginning kind of thing. Anyway, point is, this is kind of finicky because now like there's whole new arguments that can be made in terms of Tenko's place in all this. But one of the big things here is that when you see Tenko here, it's like, yeah, no. From the very beginning, Shigaraki was his separate entity. And the thing is, here, you can kill Shigaraki off and just blame him for being a personality that never should have existed. A maladjusted personality. Like, you gotta be really careful when you're playing with this level of personification of subconscious elements. Anyway, what this really just says is that Tenko is even more of a victim than ever imaginable. And to the author's credit, you gotta like defend him. Like, he did have Tenko's memories sectioned off, so Shigaraki didn't have full access into what it meant to be Tenko, But yeah, no, like right now, the author can say Tenko is literally blameless, and he should have no penalties associated to him. That's something he can say, and then he can also say Shigaraki is 100% his own thing, and he can have penalties applied to him. You don't have to think about his origins as Tenko, because his origins as Tenko have their own autonomous will. That's really the clincher there. Anyway, seeing the faces of Shigaraki are pretty good, and seeing Meteor's reaction also very good. We go into page 3 where Meteor's being attacked. And Meteor makes the great assessment that we already know, that Shigaraki's body is super, super hard. And the bottom of page 3 is a more interesting one. A fissure within. And we find out the body was complete. And now this is where the translation is going to be a little bit of a clincher here. A perfect unification of Tomura Shigaraki and me, or so I thought. So what does that tell us? All for One is the one talking. There's no other person it could be according to the English translation. And then he's talking about the component that hasn't quite melded. And he's referring back to that one scene where we saw Shigaraki touching the ground, where it seemed like Shigaraki couldn't use his power or something like that. I'm seeing a twitch, so maybe it was even someone holding back Shigaraki's hand. Maybe it was Tenko. Anyway, good to know that that event was connected to Tenko slightly restraining Shigaraki to some degree. It's weird that he did it at that moment, but alright, sure. Anyway, when you have this line saying Tomura Shigaraki and me, it tells you, like, okay, so All for One is really the big player here, and then you have neither Tomura nor All for One. So, given that he's talking about himself, we then go into a situation where he's talking about himself in the third person, which, you know what? I shouldn't be surprised. That's just kind of appropriate for who All for One is. He's pretty schizophrenic at this point. We go into page 4, where we have another shot of Shimura or Tenko just kind of hiding in the deep layers of Shigaraki's psyche. And All for One ultimately comes to the conclusion that Tenko is actually going to end up screwing this up. So that's why he goes in. I found that enjoyable because it says that Tenko is actually putting up resistance. So once Izuku gets there, there's probably going to be more resistance coming his way. Okay, bottom of page 5, you start getting the justifications of, hey, this is why Meteor did everything he did. And when you look at how like the author listed out every portion of that progression that we got in the previous chapter, you really understand, like, okay, yeah, thanks, author. You really want to explain why it is that you had Tamaki specifically attacking at the beginning, and then Tamaki's the big trump card here. Actually, I really like the logic. Thank you, author, for explaining it. I think this was relatively reasonable. Anyway, page 6 is the reveal that Sun Eater is the big guy that's going to be doing this. We see Best Jeanist preparing to defend Bakugo, and we have Shigaraki taunting Best Jeanist as well. And then we go into a very abrupt page of Nejire attacking Shigaraki. Now, for this one, I just want to point out that, yet again, Nejire has enough control that even though she's being attacked, and even though she's like having some portion of her like stomach scraped or whatever is happening there, I think she's still intact. You know, she was still able to send a needle all the way past Shigaraki in between his fingers. Look at this thing, man. Look at where this ultimately ended up. This girl didn't shoot it on the outside to just go around it all, to just go around everything. No. She shot it straight through. And you might say like, oh, but Trip, you know, like there was nothing ever in her way. That's why she could just shoot in a path that was just went by Shigaraki, like quite literally creating a breeze by his face. Nah, man, so you're trying to say like Shigaraki didn't try to stop that emanation when he tried to stop all the other ones? No. The reason I'm bringing this up is just because I'm being a little bit facetious. It's just a little bit of a joke, but it's just calling back to the previous previous chapter of just, yeah, no, Nejire has a lot of control here. And the same way that the author just let Nejire shoot so close to Shigaraki's emanations and ignore them, the same way that he had her demonstrate that level of control, he could have done that whenever he wanted to. He could have had her do everything without Mirio. That's just the big thing. The reason I'm bringing it up is just because, again, it's just a little narrative trick. And actually, to talk about a bigger thing, when it comes to authors, the places where they usually get caught out for something, it's when they're not thinking about it too hard. When they're thinking about a situation, they're putting a lot of effort into it. And so they'll usually make that situation tight, but like the moment that they kind of drop their guard and they need to work on other things where like the power dynamic isn't the main point, that's when you're very likely to see things break. Now, when it comes to when a series is covering a specific point or specific philosophy, what you have to look at in those cases is roughly the same dynamic that occurs where when you move away from the arc that's focused on the philosophy, you'll likely see very often many contradictions that the author actually supports. And then it kind of devalues the initial point of the arc. For instance, Stain's a very big victim of this, because when you look at what Stain says and you look at the future of Hero Academia, the majority of what Stain says is flat out incorrect. Like, Stain's ideals are based on falsehoods. Like, an easy one being that Ida was never going to change, and that was just provable wrong. Or, like, Native was never going to change. Again, a provable wrong. Like, Stain's an idiot. But in the time when you see his arc, you see things that sort of confirm what he's talking about, but it's like, no, not really. It's a trick. So that's the big lesson here, and it always pops up. You gotta always watch for when a particular dynamic isn't in the spotlight, because that's very likely going to be when the author forgets to be more careful about what they're demonstrating. In this case, again, what you see here is that Nejire is either so lucky or has so much control on her power that quite literally she could send it through this giant mess of a thing and it gets to Tamaki without Shigaraki ever interfering with it. Although I gotta say, like, for the author too, like, this whole situation with the hand monster, it's very hard to tell how much hand is being produced, which makes it very hard to judge the whole situation. But now, in terms of what we can judge, page 8. Now, let's talk surface level. Surface level, this is pretty much Nejire's backstory. Nejire is one of the characters that got shafted uberly. Along with Ryukyu. To this day, we know more about Rocklock than Ryukyu. Ryukyu is such a non-figure that we don't even know if she's involved most times. But this is pretty much, when I saw this, I thought, okay, that's it. Nejire's not going to really have anything important after this. She'll probably be in the background doing some little fights, but her rhetoric's done. Probably once we get out of this big three portion, rhetoric's done. It'll be very lucky for her to have even like small skirmishes after this. This character is a dead end now. There's nothing else that we need to really learn about her. He squeezed it in there though because the author knows symmetry is a thing. He knows he has to put a backstory for her because he can't do this. He can't end Hero Academia without her getting relatively equal treatment to the others. Some people might complain like, oh, but you know, her backstory is ultimately to support a guy or to support someone else, and it's like, yeah, that's kind of what supporting characters do. Even Tamaki, when he had his backstory, his backstory was there to support Mirio's. So in terms of like the whole Nejire thing, it doesn't really matter if she's supporting Tamaki with her backstory or she's talking about how valuable her friends are. This is what supporting characters do. They have to talk about themselves in relation to other characters who are more important. This is just the natural dynamic of things. I wouldn't get too upset about that. Now, what I will get upset about, and not really upset, but this is just something that I realized it when I was looking at this. Horikoshi has to decide. When it comes to someone having an all-powerful quirk, you've got to decide, is it something that's going to be celebrated or is it something that's going to cause the person to be ostracized? Because this is getting ridiculous. Like, what quirk can you have that won't cause a situation where you look down on the rest of us or cause social ostracization? You have Shinzo over there. He has a scary quirk. People make fun of him. He added more friends and all that kind of stuff. But then you have Nejire here. She has that all-powerful quirk. It's like you look down on the rest of us. Okay, this looks like this is happening in UA. So I want to know, in what world, who are these people who are in UA? They're the top of the top. They're like the top 1% of the applicants that go to UA. Who is telling her that she's looking down on them because she has a powerful quirk? Like, the rest of you don't have powerful quirks? Like, what the heck? And her quirk sucks. Her quirk uses up her stamina all the time. She's tiring out. So, I want to understand how you can have a world where Bakugo has a very powerful quirk and he actively looks down everyone, but everyone's like, hey bro, I want you to like me, or hey bro, we're gonna let you bully Izuku, we don't care, we're all just having a happy time here. Now what I'm just trying to say here is, it's always interesting how the author can like play around with the dynamics of quirks. It feels like every quirk could potentially be something that causes someone to be ostracized. Now, the bigger issue here is that this is happening in UA, where these kids should be a little bit more grown up, because they're kind of at the best. And I want to know, in what situation does a teacher allow this girl to be ostracized in their classroom? Because, like, with the way that Aizawa knows his kids, I want to know who dropped the ball here. Because this isn't right. This doesn't make sense. This is a questionable sequence, to have her being ostracized within UA when she's the top of the top along with 19 other people. Now, mind you, if you want to say, specifically, whenever I'd get curious and try to learn about others, I'd wind up driving the way. If you want to say that Nejire is just annoying, and that's why like everyone has a really bad reaction to her, I would agree, because like she is way too annoying. She's 100% super annoying for like how little character she has. She is 100% too annoying. Like, her always asking people about like what's up with them. Yeah, nah, man, nah, that's not a fun character. So if the author wants to say like that's why she drives people away, I would 100% believe that, because like I wouldn't want to have to talk to someone like that every single day of my life when I go to school. That would suck. Okay, but you know, drawing away from that point, yeah, no, this is nonsensical. Like, the one place where I think you couldn't tell me that there is ostracization going on because of a powerful quirk, it's UA. And that a teacher would allow this to occur in their classroom. This is one of those situations I would like to see like the logic behind it. Just to understand how exactly they were treating Nejire in there. I know like some people, you know, they kind of back off, but that's also because the teachers, they're kind of weird, because like in early Hero Academia, people don't really bother Shoto too much. But Shoto's friends, they never, or the people in Shoto's classroom, they never think Shoto's looking down on them. They want to be friendly with him. But then you have like the exams and all that kind of stuff, where you have the teachers talking about like all like this, they're psychoanalyzing these kids, learning all their weaknesses, and it's like, all right, you know, the next big question is like, when exactly did this sequence that we're seeing the flashback happen? Did it happen at the beginning of the at the school year? Because then, you know, you can start justifying it here. Anyway, the big thing here is that this is questionable, and this is one of those spots where you kind of need to see more context to really make a final say here. Because like on surface level, it's like, does it make sense for her to be ostracized in UA? The place where that's already really stringent. Like if you're in UA, you probably have a really developable quirk. Does it make sense for that to be there, or are there actually logical reasonings as to why this happened? At the end of the day, like Horikoshi is just gonna bend perception about quirks for any characters to suit his needs, and that's just the reality of the situation. Props to Tamaki though for like going up to her and talking to her. Anyway, that was the only part I was gonna get passionate about. That was a fun one. Nejire, you leave me with questions, man. You leave me with questions because I want to understand how shitty of a school UA is. Because yeah, we know UA is pretty shitty. Okay, let's see. And then they go on to say that Nejire knows the worth of his fast hybrid, and we see the most awesome thing that we've ever seen. Yeah, no, 100% props to the author, because this was a surprise. I didn't think he would actually go into this. And we were talking about what could possibly happen here. And, you know, looking at it closer now, you can kind of see that there's, what's it called in English? Rivets? Or, you know, there's like, you know how like a rifle, it has, god damn it, what's it called? It's specifically the carvings inside of the rifle's barrel that cause a bullet to spin. I don't know what it's called, guys. I forget. Anyway, kind of looks like that's there. So now the big question is, one, why does Sun Eater need his other arm to be a pincer? It kind of looks like he's like about to pull a fuse or something. And then I want to understand, what is he going to shoot? Is he going to shoot acid? I think acid would be a good one. I hope he shoots acid. Could it be a bullet? Could it be energy? Like we see that Nejire's energy is like swirling around it, but like who knows what that's going to do? Like if it surrounds a bullet, it can make it more powerful. I really want to know what's going to happen. It's going to be very exciting. I hope it's acid, because that'd be pretty cool. Maybe sound. Jason Thomas was talking about could be sound. Could be again a physical bullet. Yeah, maybe if we looked at one of these animals, we could probably figure it out. But yeah, no, man, I am very excited to see what exactly happens here. I like that they say that the quirk has no upper limits, but I feel like it probably does. Like its limits, well, I guess not. I guess not, because like even though it's constrained by biological things, when you put things together, maybe it creates new exponential potentials, right? Anyway, wow, that was actually only up to page 11. That's the end of the chapter. Guys, let me know what you thought down below. I had a few points there. Just to wrap everything up here. Sun Eater was a surprise. I thought that was really good. Very surprising. Love that author. Nejire's backstory is pretty alright on surface level. Like, surface level, it's just a nice... You guys are my friends, and I really love you guys a lot, and this is just my story. I was isolated. You guys were the ones... Or... Tamaki was the one that like reached out to me and became my friend, and then he introduced me to the media, and that was all pretty cool. I also think, you know, ever since I saw them, I thought there were like Tamaki, Nejire shipping undertones. I really hope they get together at the end of the series. Anyway, surface level is that. In terms of going in deeper, like again, my big questions are, how does this occur in UA? And I want to like understand how people have those inferiority complexes. I also think it's hilarious that Bakugo quite literally looks down on everyone else, and everyone actually just wants to be his friend. I guess that's just the big difference. If you just tell people they suck, yeah, they'll kind of accept it, and then they'll just try and be your friend, so you can tell them that they don't suck as much anymore. I mean, like, man, with the way that man looks down on people, like, he really he was negging a lot of people, if you think about it. He looked down on Kirishima so hardcore, and Kirishima was just like, yeah, I'm into it. But yeah, no, like, unfortunate situation for Nejire. She should have been louder about it. Again, big thing there. Wish we kind of got more clarification on that one. The Tenko stuff is by far the most interesting and most impactful, and Bakugo did nothing this chapter other than look at the destruction that was coming his way. Just special note to White Despair, because White Despair said it. Bakugo didn't get to do anything this week, so hopefully this coming week he'll get to do something. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. That was chapter 361. Till next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day. Pray that I can get this edited in time.